Hello, everybody. Yes, let's start the class. Okay. So we are supposed to start with drugs and pharmaceutical industries. I was talking about the regions of this particular. Yes, I was talking about the regions. Yes, right. Um, Now, wherever I'm mentioning about regions, always do remember something that you are not supposed to write down the region. Yes, you can write down the names of the regions, but it is better if you could mark it out. If you could mark it out, all right. So any given region, for example, right now I have the list like of pharmaceutical sector. Uh, let's first take down the list and then let me tell you how you can mark it up. So the first thing is six regions in the country. Six regions of country is famous for, or you can call it as the major regions of pharmaceutical sector or pharmaceutical industry. in the country. All right. So what are the 6 regions? First of all, it is the Bombay. Take down the 6 regions of the uh, pharmaceutical industry. Number one, Bombay Ahmedabad region, Bombay Ahmedabad Pune region, Bombay Ahmedabad Pune region. Number two, Hooghly industry region, Hooghly industrial region, Chennai Coimbatore Bangalore region, Chennai Coimbatore Bangalore region, Hyderabad, Hyderabad and Secunderabad region. They are like twin cities. They are the twin cities. So they lie on either side of the river Musi. So there is a river called Musi River, which flows across the city of Hyderabad. So on one side of the river, you call it as Hyderabad, on the other side, it becomes Secunderabad. So Hyderabad, Secunderabad region, Delhi region, number 6, Indore, Gwalior region. Okay. So suppose let's say that this is the what is it? What is the doubt? Yes, someone raised your hands, right? Yeah. If you have any doubts, you can ask.
മിസ് ഇത് ഏത് ടോപ്പിക് ആണെന്ന് പറയോ? കാരണം എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായില്ല, കാരണം ലാസ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിന്റെ എനിക്ക് കുറച്ച് മിസ്സായി പോയിട്ടുണ്ട്.
Sorry, I'm not understanding. I'm not hearing you properly.
മിസ് ഇത് ഏത് ടോപ്പിക് ആണെന്ന് പറയോ ഇപ്പം പറഞ്ഞോണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്?
Industry. We are continuing with industry topic. It's a pharmaceutical industry, so we are continuing with pharmaceutical industry.
ഓക്കെ, ലാസ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിന്റെ ഒരു 15 മിനിറ്റ് എനിക്ക് മിസ്സായി പോയിട്ടുണ്ട്, അതുകൊണ്ട്.
Okay. Right. So the others, listen to me. How do you mark this in the map? So one example I can give you. The others try to do it on your own, like for iron and steel or for any other sector, Now, I don't think I mentioned this point, but again, I wanted to mention this. In spite of writing, for those who have joined late, just listen to this. In spite of writing down the regions where that particular mineral or where that particular industry is present, if you could draw a map and then tell where is it actually located, it would be even more better. So how do you do that? You do something like this. Okay. Now what you do is, first of all, it's given Bombay, Ahmedabad, and Pune region, which means this region. This is my first region, Bombay, Ahmedabad, Pune region. I actually, now this region, maybe you can write it like 60% of the total production of drugs happen from this region. So Bombay, Ahmedabad and Pune region, so 60%. And then maybe I can mark Hooghly region. And then I can mark Chennai, Bangalore belt. And then I have Hyderabad, Secunderabad belt. And then I have Indore and Gwalior, so somewhere in the central region. And finally, the major Delhi belt. So this is how I should be marking things in map. And maybe I can put number 1, number 2, number 3, and then write it down here separately, like Bombay belt. And as a key, as a kind of a key, you can write it down separately. So this is something that you can follow in your exam or even in your note making class coordinator, or when you are revising, or maybe in the one corner of your textbook, you need to quickly draw the boundary of India and then mark it up. So this is a normal practice which, and I've been stressing this throughout. uh, Whenever you face any geography paper, optional one ആണെങ്കിലും option two ആണെങ്കിലും, and even in GS1 if you can do it, always try to bring up a map. Always try to show a map or a figure. All right. So yeah, uh, six regions, major regions or major industrial belts of pharmaceutical sector. Right. Now, talking about some of the evolution of this industry, talking about the evolution of this industry, the first thing is one major right. So one major industry, one major private limited, it is actually the IDPL. Heard of IDPL? Some even some of my relatives have heard. IDPL. They've heard of this Indian Drugs and Pharmaceuticals Limited. It's there in Chennai also. IDPL. So take down something about IDPL. Maybe as a part of your running notes, it's Indian Drugs and Pharmaceuticals Limited. Indian Drugs and Pharmaceutical Limited. It was started in 1961. Very important plants of IDPL or subsidiaries or branches of IDPL we will take up. The first one is at Rishikesh. There is there is a manufacturing unit of IDPL, manufacturing of synthetic drugs. At Rishikesh, manufacture of synthetic drugs takes place. At Chennai unit, um, manufacturing of surgical instruments takes place. At Gurgaon, Gurugram, which is your Gurugram, drug formulations takes place. Drug formulations takes place. What is drug formulations? Like, suppose let's say that a drug has a formula, something like this. This is not a drug formula. I'm just giving you a random example. So, how do you connect calcium and carbonate? How do you connect that with water molecule? So, this is formulating a drug. This is the formula behind the drug. So, the chemicals involved and the formulas and the combination of different chemicals which you should bring about, that kind of research is taken place here. And then you have one more unit that is at Muzaffarpur, for drugs and chemical intermediaries. Okay, so these are some of the important manufacturing units, very important manufacturing units. There are more subsidiaries. We need not worry about it. There are more subsidiaries. We need not worry about it, but these things at least remember. These things remember. Then one more company, which is Hindustan Antibiotics Limited. Hindustan Antibiotics Limited. So they are the company who first of all engaged with manufacturing drugs like penicillin, streptomycin. Heard of this penicillin? Penicillin is basically your, what do you call it? It's a kind of a vaccine kind of thing. And then you have streptomycin. This is another famous drug, amoxicillin. So these are different drugs which you use. So all of them got Indian formulations. It was manufactured in India after Hindustan Antibiotics Limited was set up. All right. Now what happened was introduction of or coming up of private industries or coming up of private companies coming up of private companies changed the medical scenario in India. With the arrival of the private companies, we became the pharmaceutical capital of the world. We became the pharmaceutical capital of the world after the arrival of the private companies. So, what sort of private companies do you know of? Cipla is one company, Cipla, Ranbaxy, you have Dr. Reddy's. Yes, Dr. Reddy. So these are some of the Indian companies after which, after their arrival into the scene, the case with India, we flourished in the pharmaceutical industry. So it is said that these companies, I forgot if it was Cipla or Ranbaxy, one of them started to manufacture drugs for HIV/AIDS at 1/25th of the price that was sold globally. So globally, മറ്റ് MNC ആൾക്കാരെല്ലാം എത്രയാണോ ഒരു പ്രൈസ് ഫിക്സ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത് അതിന്റെ 25th ആണ് 1/25th of that price was charged by some of the Indian companies in manufacturing HIV/AIDS drug. And only then we realized the potential behind Indian drug manufacturers. And only then we realized the potential behind Indian drug manufacturing companies. And thereafter, we developed, that was the starting point of the development of generic drugs. That was the starting point of the development of generic drugs, which is increasingly sold to third world countries. Out of that, Africa is said to be the leading purchaser, the leading buyer with respect to our generic drugs. Right. The demand for these kind of generic drugs, it grew very well in case of very poorly developed countries or less developed countries. Now, after that, something else happened. We had two laws. One was the Patent Amendment Bill, the Patent Amendment Bill of 2005, along with the original act, the Patents Acts of India 1970. India 1970. This was the original one. This was an amendment to it. Now, what happened after this was we engaged in product patenting. Product patenting. What is product patenting? What is product patenting? Suppose let's say that I am inventing a whole new drug, or let's say that I am bringing to the market something called as Dolo 650. Dolo 650 is is something that a particular company manufactures. Right now, I have a drug which is what is it? Okay, so I have an Indian tablet here which is called as Pantop 40. Okay, so let's take I have a branded product here which is Pantop 40. Now this is created by an Indian brand called as Aristo. Okay, so now listen, this is just an example. Now what happens here is Aristo has patented this particular product so that nobody else can sell this Pantop 40 in a process which is resembling the process and the drug formulations that is being done by Aristo. See, one thing you need to understand here. Pantop 40, now follow me very closely. Pantop 40 is for gastrointestinal problems. Right. Now, this drug, there will be one more gastrointestinal related problem drug that will be created by another company. But the way in which Pantoc 40 is being done, the what we call it as process, the process behind the formulation of this drug may be different from the process which is being followed by another company. Sometimes there will be one active pharmaceutical agent or active pharmaceutical ingredient that will be common in both these products, but some of the other ingredients might differ. The main drug, the main component which will cure that particular disease is what we call it as the active pharmaceutical ingredient. That will be same for Aristo and for somebody else also. But there will be one or two other ingredients which will be added to it. There will be one or two other chemicals which will be added to it. Even the color might be different. Even the size of the product will be different. Everything together falls under product patenting. I give you one more example. I'll give you one more example. Benadryl is a cough syrup that we all use. At the same time, there is also, just a second. Yes. Okay. I was looking for another cough syrup. Okay. Benadryl cough syrup was there. At the same time, heard of Benadryl cough syrup? Otherwise, there's no point in telling this. Heard of Benadryl cough syrup? I think this is a common name. No? Yes. Yes, right. So yes. So Benadryl cough syrup is a kind of a common name. We will always drink it. We will feel sleepy. So that's a normal thing. Now there is one more cough syrup which is called as Alex cough syrup Alex. Okay, so this is also meant for cough. This is also meant for cough. But the composition wise, these two are entirely different. The composition wise, there is only one active pharmaceutical ingredient which is common to these two things. Apart from that, syrup Alex has something more also. So what is it? What is it here? The idea is the product which is being done by Benadryl can be done by only by Benadryl. The product which has been done by Alex syrup can be done. I think this belongs to Cipla or something. I'm not very sure. So this is a cough syrup which can be produced by only its marketing or manufacturing company. The idea is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, that one ingredient, for example, with respect to paracetamol, your Dolo 650 and Crocin, paracetamol is the active pharmaceutical ingredient. Yes, paracetamol is that. Paracetamol is what actually? Paracetamol, we refer to it as paracetamol tablet. The chemical composition is paracetamol. Crocin and Dolo is the brand name, right? Are you understanding this? Dolo and Crocin is basically brand name. Paracetamol is the chemical component behind it, right? Yes or no? So this paracetamol might be similar for both, but there will be one or two more extra ingredients added here and there. Now that is what we call it as product patenting. Your product will be patented by patenting. Remember, you own it. You own the rights of that particular product. And suppose if somebody else is doing it, they should be somebody else is reproducing the same thing. They should be giving you proper royalties. So this is the idea behind product patenting. Now, what happened after Patent Amendment Bill 2005 came up was, what happened was, this was a bill, this was an amendment which was completely in tune with TRIPS agreement of WTO. What is TRIPS agreement? Basically, your trade-related intellectual property rights. So basically, it's about how are you abiding by, how are you obeying by the intellectual property rights of the world throughout. Are you following me? Basically, this is about how you are trying to follow the intellectual property rights of the other countries. And there is a TRIPS agreement which has been designed by WTO. There's a small, what do you call, an exception to it, an exception that has been provided even within the TRIPS agreement, that it is said that suppose you are going to create generic drugs which can be supplied to the developing and the developed countries at a very subsidized price, you can engage in copying that drug formulation. I repeat, suppose if you're going to engage in the manufacturing of generic drugs, you can engage in, what do you call, copying the drug formulation and creating some drugs at your own mother country. So this has been agreed by TRIPS and Patent Act of 2005, the Amendment Act. It agrees with the TRIPS agreement, and it has implemented the TRIPS agreement in real time in India. So what is the advantage behind this? Suppose tomorrow there is a all new drug that has come up. Let's say that there is a very advanced drug that has been created for COVID. Advanced drug, not a vaccine. Drug that is like a cure. They have invented for COVID. Now what happens is, using this using the TRIPS agreement, we can ask for formulating generic drug of this basic drug. Okay, so this can be done with proper licensing and all of that, and that is the advantage behind Patent Amendment Bill of 2005. After the Patent Amendment Act, we could engage in formulating generic drugs, and this is completely in tune with the TRIPS agreement of WTO. This is a package which is being given to countries like India to come up with generic drugs. This is like a package to countries like India to come up with generic drugs for the development of the world throughout. അത് ഒരു ഡിസ്ക്രിമിനേഷൻ കൊണ്ടുവരാത്ത മറ്റ് ഡ്രഗ്സിനാണെങ്കിൽ it will be very very pricey, and to bring about some equality, TRIPS has given this kind of an exception clause with regard to product patenting. All right. So with this amendment bill, Indian pharmaceutical industry became globally competitive in the generic drug manufacturing. Now, let me tell you, whatever I have taught you right now in this one slide that you are seeing, it is not geography optional, it is completely GS. But I cannot just tell this like this and leave, right? I need to explain certain things. Is there any doubts here? Maybe you can ask me, or I would suggest you, like at the first go, it might not be clear. Maybe you have to do some additional reading from newspapers. You have to do some additional reading in the newspapers. So this is your introduction, but if there is any doubts in this part, you can ask me. I have given you so many examples here. Just remember these kinds of examples. And this word API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, we will be coming back to this. This is quite important. Now, please ask me if you have any doubts. Don't hesitate, and please do ask me if there is any doubts on this. Otherwise, we will go to the next part of it, that is location factors. Give it a heading. The heading is location factors. This just deals with the evolution of the industry and how Indian pharmaceutical industry became globally competitive. All right. So, any doubts in this? Please tell me. Today, read about. I will tell you some things. Maybe those who are interested, maybe you can read a bit about that. Two things, three things. Maybe you can note this down. Take a fresh new page. In one corner of your book, write this. This has been already asked in prelims also. I'm not joking. This has been already asked in prelims. These two terms. These two terms, and there is a case in Supreme Court. You need not read about the case. Just note this down. Novartis versus Union of India, and Bayer Pharma versus Union of India. So these two things and these things. Just read about it, and definitely maybe tomorrow's class, if you have any doubts, then ask me about it. All right. Have you taken this down? It's pretty important for your prelims, for your not for GS papers, not for optionals. Right. Okay, let's go to the next heading, locational factors of pharmaceutical industries. First thing is, understand most of the pharmaceutical industries are located in the western belt of India around the regions of Gujarat and Maharashtra. What is the reason for this? This was asked in one of the GS papers, so as well as paper 2 in optionals. So this is something that you should be knowing. Why all of the farmers, most of the 60%, most of the pharmaceutical sectors in our country located in the western belt of the Gujarat and Maharashtra. The first reason is raw materials. Number one, raw materials. What is raw materials? What raw materials do drug manufacturing units use? Raw materials of drug manufacturing units, they will use raw materials like mostly from chemicals, mostly chemicals. So there is petrochemical industries located in these regions of Gujarat and Maharashtra. So you have petrochemical industries in Vadodara, in Bharuch, in Vadodara, Bharuch, Surat. So you have petrochemical industries in these regions, petrochemical refineries in these regions. And therefore, their the petrochemical industry gives you certain hardcore chemicals which is used in the drug industry. So that is the first reason why I'm having the pharmaceutical sector located in the closer to the raw materials, closer to the raw materials. So proximity to raw materials is the first reason, raw materials. Second reason is, as usual, because of the entrepreneurial nature of the Gujaratis and the Marathis and Parsi community people, Parsi and Jain community people, Parsi and Jain community people, because of their entrepreneurial abilities of people around Gujarat, Maharashtra, especially the Parsi and Jain community people, as well as because of the capital availability, because of the capital availability. Now understand, this is a trading region. Gujarat and Maharashtra has always been a trading region. So their capital availability is also high. And because of the high capital availability, that is also one of the reasons for the industry to be situated in the western coastal region, or not the coastal, western regions of India. The third important factor is, now those are the important factors. The following, these two are the important factors along with capital. Along with capital. Just a second, I'll come back right now. Yes, I'm back. Sorry. We are talking about capital. So these three factors, yes, together, these three factors are the major reasons, are the major reasons for the pharma industry to be situated in the western belt of India. Right. What can be the other locational factors? Number four, there is one more factor here. There is one more factor for it to be located in the western belt. That is the markets. I told you, remember, we are selling the generic drugs to where? Mostly to the African nation, right? We are selling generic drugs to African nation. So the market is located in such a way that if I'm drawing, here is where you should be again drawing the map. I'm just giving you hints of answer writing. So what happens is, um, I have African region here, Arabia here, Iran here, and then followed by that I have India. Followed by that I have India. So what happens is, from here to reach here, it is easy. So maybe if you can draw a small map like this and then show it, it would be better. So the markets are mostly the third world countries, and it's easier to reach these countries from the west coast of India. That's also one of the reason why we have the markets, the industries in the western belt of the country. Number five, skilled labor. We have spoken about this. Skilled labor as well as cheap labor, cheap skilled force, infrastructure, infrastructure. So most of the pharmaceutical industrial units, they are located in the western coast. Is one of the reason is also because of infrastructure. Post 1995, or you can write it like post 2000, the belt of Gujarat as well as the regions of Maharashtra had seen huge growth in terms of infrastructure, transport facilities, power facilities, etc. And that is also why the industry is located here. Infrastructure is one major reason. Number seven, another very, very important reason is favorable government policies. Favorable government policies. These states of Gujarat and Maharashtra, they have favorable governmental policies which is actually boosting the pharmaceutical sectors, which is actually attracting the pharmaceutical sectors. Number eight, um, FDI, huge FDI that we have been receiving in pharmaceutical, that is advantages. No, don't write that. So these are the number seven. These are the locational advantages with respect to pharmaceutical industry. These are the locational advantages or locational factors with respect to pharmaceutical industry. Most of them you can also write it for major reason for the western belt to be flourishing as the pharmaceutical region of the country. Understood these 7 points? Is this clear, guys? Did you understand how you should be drawing small maps here and there? Is that point clear, the drawing maps part? Yes. So make sure that you keep drawing maps wherever it is possible, right? Let me move for the next one. What are the problems behind this particular industry? What are the problems behind this industry? The first thing is, in fact, the very first thing that you should be writing is API, active pharmaceutical ingredients. Problems with API. Any drug that you take, in fact, the drug that I told you, which is Pantop 40. So it says that there is something called as pantoprazole sodium. There is something called as, again, just example, remember, there is something called as pantoprazole sodium. This is the active pharmaceutical ingredient with regard to that gastrointestinal drug that I talked about. So basically, every drug in this world will have an API. Will have an API. That's the major, what do you call? That's the major component which will cure you, which will treat your condition. So what is happening is, India, though we are doing a lot of research, we are only researching upon what alternatives we can pick for this API, along with some other formulations will be there. So what for this formulation, how we can find some cheaper variety. So that's all that we are doing. We are not investing much of our research in finding new drugs. Are you understanding me? We are just thinking about, there is an existing drugs. How can we manufacture in our country locally using some small modifications here and there. So generic drugs, adana generic drugs nu parayunnathu. But the active pharmaceutical ingredient will remain the same. The active pharmaceutical ingredient will not change. For that foreign drug and for the Indian drug, the core component in our API will not change. What are we only changing? How to manufacture it cheaply? What are the local chemicals that we can add, so that local chemical formulations that can be added to market it cheaply? That's the only thing that we are doing that becomes a generic drug. On the other hand, we are still dependent on API on the person who has created the drug, on the person who has created the drug. Now, this is where China takes a huge, you know, it's like a lion. It's like a lion in terms of API manufacturing. They create new drugs. They formulate their own drugs. They create new drugs. They create new APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients. Now, one of the best API manufacturing units in China is in Wuhan. And you all know what is Wuhan famous for. Wuhan is the lab. There you have many labs, not just one lab. Now, in one of the Wuhan lab, we had the manufacturing of, or it is said that, it is alleged that it is coronavirus has been manufactured, has been created in such Wuhan laboratory. So we are not sure about it, but yes, that's what everybody says. Now, what you need to understand is API manufacturing takes place at a very rapid level, at a very high level. It needs a lot of R&D. It needs a lot of R&D. When you're talking about R&D, what do you need? You need lots of money. So that is the reason China, countries like China, USA are involved in API manufacturing, and countries like India is not able to do lot of API, active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing. I can go one more step, and I can make one more statement. In fact, it is not just because of the money pumping and R&D they could manufacture API. API manufacture ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് research ആവശ്യമാണ്, അതൊക്കെ സത്യമാണ്. But I can go to one more step and I can make a statement. In fact, they create new diseases, and that's what happened with Corona also. They create new diseases, and they try to find what works on that particular disease, what does not work on that particular disease. So this is how your entire, what do you call, entire pharmaceutical industry does something like this. But what happened is, sadly, one virus, they left it out in the open. They released it out in the open, and that has created a whole pandemic. But ഇതാണ് ഒരു ശരിക്കും ഒരു പ്രോസസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. They invent a virus, they try to manufacture a virus, they try to find a cure for the virus. So this is what they do. But the virus that got released is a very sad thing. But API manufacture ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഇങ്ങനെയാണ്. They need new diseases so that they can manufacture new drugs. So the point is, Chinese manufacturing units, Chinese pharmaceutical companies, US pharmaceutical companies, they are enjoying a huge share with respect to manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients, because of which they could engage in creation of new drugs. On the other hand, because of the lack of R&D and because of the lack of capital investment, India cannot engage in API manufacturing, and therefore India is always dependent on China for API manufacturing. So this is the first deficit or a first problem with regard to Indian pharmaceutical industry. Is that point clear? Have you taken notes? Is this point clear? Yes. Okay. Fine. Let's move to the next important defect, next important problem. Our technology. That is also a basic problem. The technology which we use is it's quite obsolete. Again, it's a lack of R&D. So the lack of technology also is because of the lack of R&D. And then there is huge competition from the big firms in Australia, in Japan, and US. There is big competition from big firms in Australia, US, China, Japan, etc. And we cannot compete with that kind of a competition. The next important thing is countries like US, they say that we are indulging in piracy. What is piracy basically? That we are illegally copying the drug formulations of these top manufacturers. But are we? No, we are not illegally copying. We have our own law. We have an exception in TRIPS agreement, and we are utilizing it. But the firms in US say that we are indulging in piracy activities. We are illegally copying the formulas. That is not true. And in fact, United States Trade Representative USTR of USA. This is an organization. This is a not an organization. This is a representative body. It is a representative body which tries to keep a track of all tries to keep a track of all intellectual property rights violations that has happened in the world with regard to US products. US might have, let's say, US has created CKFC is something that's a brand of US. Yes, Kentucky Fried Chicken is a brand of USA. Now they have created franchises in the rest of the world. Tomorrow, if somebody is using the logo of KFC and manufacturing their own chicken, then this KFC organization can come and file a case against that particular person. So USTR does something like that. They try to keep track of all the patented products of USA, and whoever is violating it, they will put a case against them. And USTR of USA, for quite some time, they have kept India in priority watch list. They have kept India in priority watch list in its special 30 report. In its special 30 report, and that is actually hurting the Indian pharmaceutical industry. So this special 30 report, it was in news many times because of sort of phytosanitary measures, SPS, phyto sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So maybe in the corner of your book, you can take this down. It's called as sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So we were in the watch list for both pharmaceutical violations as well as SPS violations. So they accused us that we are violating the intellectual property rights. So we are not supposed to sell our products in USA. So there are so many problems which is being given to our pharmaceutical industry. So these are the problems pertaining to our pharmaceutical sector. Okay. That is it with regard to pharmaceutical sector. Let us move to the next sector that we have. We have dealt with fertilizers. I think we should be moving on to chemical sector. Now, not much chemical sector, not much, but still it's important. But there is nothing fertilizer and what do you call pharma. Fertilizer and pharma are the most important chemical sector. But apart from that, there is a few other chemical sectors which we will do it right now. Chemical and allied industries. If the heading has chemical and allied industries. So here we are talking about manufacturing of two sorts of chemicals. One is organic chemicals and the other one is inorganic chemicals. Organic and inorganic chemicals. Organic and inorganic chemicals. Now, first of all, when we are talking about organic chemicals, there are production of certain chemicals which will be utilized in in petrochemical industry, organic chemicals. They will be utilized in industries like petrochemicals. They will be utilized in um, dyeing sector, dyes, basically dyes sector, petrochemical sector. Similarly, you have it for plastic manufacturing, synthetic fiber manufacturing, drugs and pharmaceuticals. These are examples of organic chemical industries. Coming to inorganic chemicals, there are certain chemicals like sulfuric acid, nitric acid, I have examples of caustic soda. So these are examples of inorganic chemicals, and these chemicals are used for either manufacturing of fertilizers or for manufacturing of certain explosive sector. Your all that crackers that you use to burst, no, during the time of Diwali or during any times you burst crackers, those crackers supply chain chemicals are mostly inorganic chemicals. So basically, it is a set of inorganic chemicals you manufacture a set of organic chemicals. So those chemicals alone we will be reading here and where it is getting manufactured. So the first thing we will take up is inorganic chemicals. In that, have the first one as sulfuric acid. Inorganic chemicals, number one, sulfuric acid. Discussed before, sulfur is not inherently present in our country. Sulfur is not present in our country. We have very small reserves only. So we need to import most of it. But whatever has been left or whatever is available, especially from the soils of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat. These are the important centers where you are manufacturing sulfuric acid from. Sulfuric acid is from these places. And what do you use sulfuric acid for? We use it for manufacturing fertilizers, synthetic fibers, paint, and certain other metallurgical industries. Like, for example, for certain processes, we'll be using this acid, which is H2SO4. So basically, we are using it for certain other chemical industries, for certain other metallurgical industries. Number two, we are talking about nitric acid. It is essentially associated with fertilizer plants and explosive. So nitric acid, nitrous, any substance that's associated with nitric acid, it's used to produce ammonia. Remember, it is used to produce ammonia before it is also useful in the case of fertilizer industry and explosive. Right. When you're talking about caustic soda is a very important substance. Caustic soda as well as soda ash, two are very, very important substances. Caustic soda, again, the basic raw material is common salt, your common salt, sodium chloride. Caustic soda, the basic raw material is common salt. And it is therefore mostly grown near coastal areas, like, for example, I'm talking about Porbandar, Thane region, Kalyan region, Thane, Kalyan, everything is in Maharashtra region. So everywhere around the Gujarat, Maharashtra coastal belt. That is where I'm having caustic soda manufacturing. Thinking about soda ash, coming to soda ash, it is mostly sodium chloride along with limestone. Sodium chloride along with limestone, which is very highly available in the coast of Gujarat. Soda ash, it is being utilized for manufacturing of glass, paper, soap, and detergent. Soaps and detergent. So these are the major inorganic chemicals which is being manufactured in our country, along with the locations. Coming to organic chemical industry. The first thing is petrochemicals. The first thing is petrochemicals. So apart from petrol, you get some other products also from refinery industry. So that falls under petrochemical industry or petrochemical products. Now, one thing which we did recently is pharmaceutical sector. അവിടെ ഞാൻ എന്താ പറയുന്നത് pharmaceutical sector use in the raw materials most of it we are getting it from petrochemical industry. So drugs and pharmaceutical is one of the important beneficiary with regard to pharmaceutical, I mean petrochemical refining. Then you have fertilizers, insecticides. Those are the other examples. Mumbai is the hub of petrochemical industry. And then we have parts of Gujarat also, Bombay, Gujarat. We have West Bengal. There also petroleum refining takes place. So these are some of the important regions. I repeat, Gujarat, Maharashtra, West Bengal, and Andhra Pradesh. Now, this petrochemical, one of the subsector or one of the beneficiary of petrochemical refinery is drugs and pharma. We just now discussed. The second important beneficiary is the formation of polymer industry. The formation of polymer industry and synthetic fiber industry. So polymer industry is basically your plastic industry. They create polymers, long chain polymers, mainly for plastic industry. And India has now become the major exporter of plastic, of polymers basically. And here again, the regions of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal are the most important states with regard to this polymer manufacturing. Synthetic fibers, all the cloth materials that you use with synthetics, that's manufactured by synthetic fibers. So they work on fabric creation. Synthetic fibers, that's not polymers, that's not plastics. It's essentially fabric creation. So you have it in Rajasthan, synthetic fiber factory, you have it in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, mostly Rajasthan and Maharashtra. All right. So this is it about the chemical industry, the other chemical industries in India. Now we shall move on to paper industry. Give the heading as paper industry. The very first evolution, the first one is evolution of this particular industry. The very first, so these are basically facts. So the very first industry, the first paper mill, it was set up at Serampur. I'm sure you must have heard of this name in history. So Serampur in the year of 1832 in West Bengal. Now, this industry could not survive successfully, and later on, like post independence, then that is the time. Before that, also we had many industries, but it was only after post independence that many individual units, paper manufacturing units, came into picture, especially the regions around West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh are some of the key manufacturing units with regard to paper. All right. Now, it is the small scale industries, right? Like this, it is the small scale industries which account for more than 50% of the installed capacity and 50% of the production of paper in our country. It is the small scale units which is responsible for more than 50% of paper production in our country. That forms your introduction. Now let us go to the reasons, the locational factors and various reasons for the growth of the paper industry. First of all, give the heading as growth pattern of paper industry. Growth pattern of the paper industry. So first thing is the paper industry is very sporadic, which means it is randomly distributed. It's very sporadic. The growth is very sporadic, which means it is randomly distributed, and the ratio of growth has also been very uncertain. Like the industry started around 1832, but I'm telling you that only after independence the industry flourished. So the period of growth has also been very sporadic. The spread of the industry has also been very sporadic. Sporadic in Parambo, that it's kind of unpredictable. Okay. So why is it unpredictable? Why did this industry become so sporadic? The first thing is the industry is basically dependent on small scale manufacturing units. Small scale manufacturing units. Therefore, it's not a very large scale unit. It's actually most of the paper is being from small scale units. Therefore, we cannot predict the growth of such small scale industries. That's one of the reasons. The second thing is uh, some of the paper manufacturing units are functioning as integrated plant as an integrated plant in sugar manufacturing industry. So what did we study? We studied about something called as bagasse. So bagasse is used for paper manufacturing. So basically, that's the reason why that sugar manufacturing units are functioning in an integrated manner with paper units. Right. That is also one of the reasons for the sporadic manufacturing. Then many units are switching over to non-conventional raw material, non-conventional raw materials for the manufacturing of paper. What is non-conventional manufacturing? What is non-conventional raw materials? See, ideally we have studied that paper we obtain it from wood pulp. Yes, that's what we have read in childhood. Paper we get it from wood pulp. But right now, industries are switching over to many non-conventional, raw materials. Like for example, one of them being bagasse, and the next one being you have a material called bamboo. It's a very common material, but there is one more material called tuft grass or sabai grass. Now, this is a very non-conventional material. Now, innovative material, maybe it will be available in some places, it will not be available in other places. And that is also a reason why the spread of the industry has been very sporadic. All right. Then there are some more units, small scale paper manufacturing units, which will recycle the waste paper and will manufacture new paper. So that is also one more reason why we cannot predict the growth of this particular industry. All right. Then coming to locational factors. Coming to locational factors. Locational factors. Number one, nearness to the source of raw material. Nearness to the source of raw material. So what are the raw materials? I've just now explained. Bamboo is one raw material. Wood pulp is another raw material. So wherever I have the closeness to that raw material, I will shift my location to that particular location. So nearness to the raw material is one important factor. Then supply of coal. Coal is needed for energy requirement. I need coal, and therefore, wherever I get too much of coal, wherever I have coal, I will locate my industry to that region. For that matter, let me give you a quick information. Number one is raw material. Raw material. Number two is coal. For that matter, West Bengal is the best example. I have paper industry in West Bengal, and the locational advantages is two. One is Raniganj coal fields. Raniganj coal fields give me a lot of coal. That is one advantage. Second advantage is presence of a large amount of bamboo. There are two multiple advantages, and that's one reason. And there is availability of hydel power also in the form of Hooghly River, and that's also one more reason why my paper manufacturing industry is very much concentrated in and around the regions of West Bengal. Raniganj coalfields. All right. Supply of coal. The third one is market. Of course, if I'm talking about any industry, then we need to think about market also. Now, wherever I have a considerable requirement of a particular product, it's advantageous if I situate my industry in that particular location. So market is also another important factor. Then finally, the last one, which is water supply. Water supply. So the pulp, making the wood pulp, taking the cellulose, draining the cellulose, converting it into paper. This entire process needs a lot of water. So that brings me to the next topic. How do you manufacture paper? How do you manufacture paper? So it's a two-step process. It is a two-step process. The first thing is you have to formulate the pulp. That is, um, that is, you need to get the timber. Um, you have to get the pulp out of it. You have to completely squeeze it, mix it with water, beat it, form a pulpy material. That from that pulp, you have to drain it to get the cellulose. All plant materials are made up of cellulose. Yes. So this cellulose is a kind of a starch, the kind of a starchy substance, and that you have to get it out of that paper pulp, that wood pulp. You have to get it out of the wood pulp, and you have to spread it out. You have to spread it out in the form of a large sheet, and then press it completely. You have to give a lot of compressing pressure. Then that becomes like a paper. So this is a two-stage process. First of all, where you extract the cellulose. The second stage is the cellulose is converted and it is pressed to form a paper. Mostly the raw materials would include the raw materials for manufacturing or raw materials for getting the pulp, the paper pulp. It includes substances like bamboo, sabai grass, pagaci, etc. Okay, so take down individually. We'll write down about. I will talk about that. You can take some time. Okay. So the first one is bamboo. Bamboo, as you all know, it is grown in most parts of the country, and it's a quickly ripening plant. And the idea is you take the bamboo, extract the pulp, and you get the paper. So basically, the manufacturing process remains the same. The areas where you get a lot of bamboo is it includes the areas of Assam, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, parts of West Bengal. So these are the regions where you get the bamboo. Coming to Sabai grass, this is quite important. Sabai grass, also known as the tuft grass, it is available in the foothills of the Shivaliks. It is available in the foothills of the Shivaliks, and it is also present in the Terai region of Manipur. Terai plains, not just in Manipur, so you have it in the Terai regions of uh, Assam plains, you have it in Manipur. So basically, it is found in the Terai plains. Now, that is Sabai grass. That is about Sabai grass. So, what happens is, wherever you have an industry that's closer to the northeastern parts of the country, you use a lot of Terai, I mean, Sabai grass, especially the UP region, especially the UP region. It is the sabai grass which is grown as a important, or which is used as an important raw material for the paper industry. Then coming to Bagesi, Bagesi is your sugarcane byproduct, sugarcane industry byproduct. So that is also an important paper raw material. Apart from that, what are the other raw materials that you can use? The other raw materials include waste paper. You can recycle the waste paper and convert it into new paper. So waste paper, straws from rice and from wheat, straws from rice and wheat, softwood like eucalyptus, pine wood, pine wood are some of the other raw materials. Okay. Now coming to the location of this industry, coming to the locational factors, location of this industry. It is a raw material intensive industry. Therefore, it's mostly situated next to the raw material. Bamboo is used in a large quantities, but apart from that, sabai grass is also used. And in regions where softwood is very highly developed, like in and around the regions of Nilgiris, where you have the development of softwood, that is in Tamil Nadu, in the development in and around the regions of Nilgiris, where you have a lot of softwood like eucalyptus. They use that kind of eucalyptus. I mean, they use that kind of softwood trees. Okay, so more or less, that is about your location of the industry. That is about location of the industry. In addition to it, what else can you add? You can talk about the initial things that I have mentioned. That is, you need presence of good quality of water. So water supply is another important factor. So because of which industries are located very close to rivers like Hooghly and rivers like Hooghly, that's very important. also talk about presence of market. These components, these things you can also bring under the location of the industry. So most of the industries are located in regions like West Bengal, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Okay, so these are the major locational spread of the industry, or you can call it as distribution of industry. I repeat, West Bengal, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Karnataka, along with Tamil Nadu, constitute nearly uh, 65% of the production. So that is with regard to distribution factors of this particular industry. Now coming to problems pertaining to this industry. Problems pertaining to this industry. The first problem is shortage of raw material. The first problem is shortage of raw material. Forests have been reducing, trees have been reducing, therefore wood pulp, it's actually falling. Now, three things you need to understand. Softwood plus bamboo. If I'm getting pulp out of this, the paper quality is actually, what do you call? It's very fragile. It will tear at just like that. But if I'm going to make paper out of hardwood trees, the paper is going to be very, strong. You're going to have thick papers. So depending on the quality of the pulp, the quality of the paper will differ. Depending on the quality of the pulp, the quality of the paper will differ. So because of the lack of forest resources in the country, and because of reduced quantities of bamboo, we are facing a resource crunch. And also there is an environmental awareness which is coming up that we should not be using paper. So that is also creating disruptions with regard to the availability of raw material. Second thing is because of the environmental concerns, the industry is not able to commercially run properly because of the environmentalist. Because of the environmentalist, the industrial activity is severely harmed. The third important thing is there is a very high cost of production. There is high cost of production in terms of the equipments that is needed for the paper industry. High cost of production is the next important factor. Are you guys following me? Is there any issues till now? The reason I'm asking is I feel like it's very I'm not getting the interaction, so that's the reason. Um, are you guys with me? Is there any doubts that you have been facing till now? Any issues? If you have any issues, make it as a if you have any doubts, make it as a private message and put it in the chat box. I know that you guys are following me. Otherwise, it becomes like very boring for me. Otherwise, I am used to teach people directly in class, and now I'm missing those interactions. Right. If there is any doubt, just ping me in the chat box. Right. First thing is non-availability, shortage of raw material. Second thing is environmental concerns that is being thrown by the environmentalist. Third important thing is high cost of production because of the equipment cost, because of the cost that we have to spend with regard to processing units. We have to get the required raw materials, convert them into pulp. Like three capital investment. Like what do you call by capital investment? We need to have the required machines and so on. So all that will take away a lot of your capital. Your cost will considerably increase. But the next thing is, see, you're taking the forest resources. You're taking the forest resources, and the government at present is asking for royalties from the private companies. So what happened is, these governments have actually given certain forest land as these governments have given certain forest land as lease, as a lease. You know what is a lease, right? You can use the forest for this much years, and then you have to give it back to us. Now what might have happened in that, maybe let's say they have given for a 50-year lease. Let's say that they have given for a 50-year lease. Now what would have happened by that time? These people, the private companies, would have cut at least half of the forest. They might have indulged in certain afforestation also, but the state governments are now asking for royalties for the natural resource that is being used. So that is also indirectly affecting the profitability of the companies, and the companies are reluctant to pay it. And then comes the problem of small scale manufacturing units. Now, while discussing about the topic in the beginning, I told you that majority, almost like more than 50% of your paper has been produced by small scale manufacturing units. That is, in a way, it is advantageous. What is the advantage behind it? The advantage is we are giving employment to MSME sectors. We are giving employment to a lot of small entrepreneurs. It's an advantage, but there is a disadvantage to it also. These people, the small scale industrial units, are not able to commercialize their units, and they are not able to produce large quantities, which is definitely affecting their profitability. Yesterday, I gave you an example. If I'm taking 100 kgs of oranges from Kottayam, from Pala to Kottayam, sell it in the market, it is going to give me a certain profit. But if I'm increasing the economies of scale, we call it as economies of scale. If I'm increasing from 100 kgs of oranges, if I'm increasing to 1000 kgs of orange every day, I'm selling it to some place in Kottayam and coming back, my traveling time and traveling cost will increase only by a little bit. Okay, 100 kg, maybe if I'm taking in an auto for 1000 kg, maybe I should carry a small load auto or something. So the quantity has increased. Maybe a bit of increase has to be there with regard to transportation cost, but at the end, I will be getting a lot of profit. So this is what we call it as economies of scale. Like if I'm going to manufacture pickle, say for if my manufacturing capacity is like I can manufacture 10 kilograms of pickle in a month, that is not going to give me profits. But if I'm going to prepare or set up a unit which is going to give me 1000 kgs of pickle per month, I will be benefited out of it, because this is what we call it as economies of scale. Very, very simply, if I have to tell, if I'm going to cook for two people, I have to put the same effort. And if I'm going to cook for say some 5 people, they are also going to put the same effort. But here 5 people are going to be satisfied. Here only 2 people are going to be satisfied. Economies of scale means with just a small extra effort, my profit will be very, very high. My returns will be very, very high. All right. So these small scale manufacturing units are at present facing sickness, are at present facing sickness. What sort of sickness? They're not able to, or you can say they are facing heavy burden in terms of paying the debt, in terms of commercializing, in terms of investing in capital equipment, and so on. So this is one major problem with regard to small scale manufacturing units. Then next important thing is paper manufacturing, you know, paper manufacturing or paper factory, that this thing, your paper, to make it more and more white in color, you have to use sulfur. I repeat, the paper manufacturing units. Some papers, if you have observed, it'll some notepads, especially I've seen it in notepads. Some notepad will be very cheap in price, and the paper will be not very clean. It will not be very white in color. It'll have a dull shade to it. But some paper, the classmate quality notebooks, have you seen that? The classmate quality notebooks, basically they will have white paper. Lot of sulfur goes into it to cleanse your paper and to make it more and more white in color. Now, what will happen because of this? Thing is, uh, industrial effluents will be released. Industrial effluents will be released, which will have a lot of harmful chemicals, including sulfur. Now, this will harm the environment even more. This will be released in a water body and it will lead to what is called as eutrophication of that water body. It will harm the local flora and fauna. So these are another environmental concerns. Now, there is an increasing demand for paper. There is an increasing demand for paper, and that has also resulted in there is a wide gap in the Indian industry, paper industry, in terms of the demand and supply. The demand is too much, the supply is not keeping up. So we are trying to import it. So this kind of demand supply mismatch is also present with regard to India. Okay, so that is more or less the thing with regard to uh, problems faced problems faced in the paper manufacturing units. Just a second, let me see if I have missed something. Not much. Okay, so this is broadly the major important problems with regard to paper manufacturing units. All right, let us go to the next important industry, that is automobile industry. Automobile industry. So when I'm talking about automobiles, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Cars, your passenger cars, the regular cars that we use, bikes, we have trucks, autos, buses, tractors. So most of the commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles. So we can broadly classify this into commercial vehicles as well as my passenger vehicles. Passenger segment is mostly cars and your bikes. Those are basically your passenger vehicles, two-wheelers, cars, autos. They fall under the category of passenger vehicles. When I'm talking about commercial vehicles, I need to talk about things like buses, trucks, tractors, trailers. So those fall under the category of commercial vehicles. In India, most of the automobile sector in India are concentrated in some 2-3 places. One very important place is, I'll come to that later. Wait. First of all, let's talk about evolution. Geographical regional spread, we will talk about later. First of all, we'll go in an order. Evolution. Evolution. Number one. The very first factory in terms of manufacturing automobiles came up with General Motors. General Motors, they set up their factory first of all at Bombay in the year of 1928. General Motors at Bombay in the year of 1928. But what you need to know is then after that, in the year of 1931, Ford set up their unit at Chennai. What you need to remember in these two examples is both these companies indulged only in assembling the cars and the trucks. Are you finding the difference? They are not manufacturing it, it's only assembling is done. Like what? How can I explain this? Suppose let's say that you are buying a computer. What you're doing is you are not buying. You go to what do you call? You go to a particular. I'm not talking about a laptop. I'm talking about a computer. You go to Dell. You find the monitor to be perfect. You go to maybe some other brand, Acer or something, or Lenovo or something, and you're buying the CPU unit. You go for something else, and you like the keyboard component. So you are buying the different parts of the computer. You assemble in your home. That is called an assembled set. Manufacturing, that's assembling. That's basically assembling. So what India does is, India was doing is previously, we used to get, there will be a finished wheel that will be coming from Japan. There will be a finished body that will come from US, and we will just assemble it. We will just try to connect it, fix it, make it into a working model. So this is what we have been doing. All right. And then after that, the real development came up only when we started to manufacture the cars and the trucks on our own. The real growth in the industry. The real growth in the industry came up only when we started to manufacture the things on our own. And that came up with setting up of two important names or two important factories. Heard of Premier Automobile sector? The Premier Automobiles? You must have heard of it. Remember that Premier Padmini? Your grandparents or someone might have owned it. Premier Padmini. Very, very famous car. Heard of this car, Premier Padmini? There is this brand called Premier. Have you you must have seen it, but at least you must have seen it. Maybe you would have forgotten it. When you were very kids, you might have seen Premier Padmini. So I don't know, but I have seen it. But maybe since we have an age gap. But Premier Padmini is a very famous car. Heard of Fiat? Fiat cars. Fiat is actually Fiat and Premier. They tied up and they formed many cars. So Shivaji, that age-old actors, MGR, they had Premier cars. They had Premier Padmini cars. So if you own a Padmini car during that point of time, like I'm talking about 1960s point of time, it's like you are owning a Benz, you're owning a Rolls Royce, something kind of like that. So Premier Padmini usually will be owned by cine stars like MGR. Those people used to have Premier. Uh, then there was this Premier automobile setup. The year was the year was 1947 when the first Premier factory was set up. The year was 1947. It was set up at Bombay. And then came another company, Hindustan Motors. Hindustan Motors also have a branch, a unit that is set up. One is in Kolkata, the other one was in Chennai. So, first of all, in the year of 1948, the first branch came up in Kolkata. All right. Now, after the setting up of Premier Automobiles and Hindustan Motors, only then we had the development of the automobile industry in the country. So that's about the evolution of the sector. Now let us take a look about the locational factors. The first thing is you need metallurgical products at the end of the day, iron and steel. The steel and other metallurgical, non-iron based metallurgical products. Non-iron based metallurgical products as well as steel, it is going to form the backdrop of all of my trucks, my cars, my two-wheelers, buses, and etc. So basically, what do I need? I need finished products from metallurgical industry. So the first condition is raw material closeness in the form of metallurgical industry, in the form of metallurgical products. Those products form as the, or it will serve as the raw material for my industry. The second thing is I need certain ancillary industries in the form of rubber tires, glasses for my windows, plastic, some of the electronics that I see in the front of my screen. So these are my ancillary industries. These are my ancillary industries, and it is beneficial if I locate my industry closer to these ancillary industries, closer to this ancillary industry. There is also one more point that you need to add here. Also, the opposite of this is true. Like if I have an industry, an automobile sector, if I have an automobile sector, because of agglomerative effect also, these ancillary industries will start to be spreading out, will be start to get developed in and around my automobile sector. Are you understanding this? നമുക്കൊരു ആൻസിലറി ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു ടയർ മാനുഫാക്ചറിങ് യൂണിറ്റോ അതോ ഒരു ഇലക്ട്രിക് മാനുഫാക്ചറിങ് ഇലക്ട്രോണിക്സ് മാനുഫാക്ചറിങ് യൂണിറ്റോ അടുത്ത് ഇരിപ്പുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ then it's good, then you can situate your automobile sector in that place. It's good. But even otherwise, the opposite will also happen. Like what? You are setting up an automobile sector, first of all, and because of agglomerative effect of industry, some other people, one rubber manufacturing unit will come and put their industry close by. One electronic manufacturer will come and put his industry next to your automobile industry. These things will happen, which will happen because of the agglomerative effect of an industry. Third important factor, location factor, is some prefer it to be located near the iron and steel sector. Okay. And then fourth important point is port, closeness to the port. You're producing a car, you need to export it somewhere. Maybe you need to import certain raw material from somewhere else. So port location is another favorable factor. And finally, governmental policies. Governmental policies. Suppose, let's say that if the government is telling, please, Suzuki is a brand from Japan. So please, Suzuki, come and collaborate with Maruti. We will give you free land. We will make sure that we will liberalize the licensing procedure for you. So please come and put your shop here. If there is favorable governmental policies in terms of licensing norms, in terms of land acquisition, then also that place will be preferred by the automobile sector. Sixth point is, at present, there is a new trend. There is a new trend that is coming up, which is location of the industry closer to the market. Closer to the market. There is no point, the industry understood, when my market is basically the city people. When my market is basically the city people, I should locate my industry closer to the city people and not in the rural areas. So this kind of one consideration has also come up with the manufacturers. So market is also one, the closeness to the market is also one more important factor, locational factor for this industry. Right. Now, some of the important companies, we will take a quick note now. Some of the important distribution, you can write the heading as distribution of automobile industry. Distribution of automobile industry. So the first thing is, again, you have to draw an Indian map. The first thing is, the first region where you have automobile industry is the Gurgaon region in Haryana, the Gurugram region, where you have at a place called Manesar, you have Maruti, you have Maruti Suzuki. So first of all, it was an Indian company called as Maruti, and then Suzuki also joined with it. So it became Maruti Suzuki, right? So that's how it started. And so they produce, so this is the first region, this is the first belt. The second belt with regard to India, it is the Chennai belt. Chennai belt. In Chennai, I have the very famous Hindustan Motors. I have the famous Hindustan Motors, Ford Motors, Standard Motors, okay. So if you could remember, Hindustan joined hands with one important company called as Mitsubishi. What did Mitsubishi form? They formed Lancer cars. Heard of Lancer cars? Once upon a time, it was very, very famous, Lancer. Yes. So Mitsubishi and Mitsubishi and Hindustan, they joined together to form Lancer. The product that they released was Lancer. There was one more important plant with regard to Chennai, that is Ford. Of course, you all know what Ford, the very iconic icon, Ford icon is a very important, was once upon a time like a very important product, was very important car. Apart from passenger cars, they are also engaged in lots of manufacturing of trucks, like commercial vehicles, trucks, vans and buses and so on. So Ford is a very important vehicle. I mean, therefore, is a very important company. Then you have another company, that is, you have the Hyundai. Hyundai Motors. You have Hyundai Motors somewhere closer to Chennai in a Kanchipuram district in Tamil Nadu. So all of this makes Chennai as the automobile, you can call Chennai as the automobile capital of India. So very like Tottadutta, you have so many plugs. You have so many plugs. So that's about Hyundai, and you know what Hyundai manufactures. Hyundai manufactured. They after Maruti, Hyundai was the company which revolutionized passenger cars once upon a time. They came up with the most successful brand, most successful car, and that is the most successful car of Hyundai, which is, and they just continued later on. Santro, yes, Santro came up right after Hyundai. So Santro was one other important car. Now, now the next region, these one or two names alone you give here, and the regions are very important. The next important region is Mumbai Pune region. It is Mumbai Pune region. Mumbai Pune region. Now, in this region, very importantly, I have a company called as Telco. I have a company called as Telco, and Telco joined hands with Mercedes Benz, and all the high-end products which has been released by Benz comes from this factory. All the high-end products that Benz releases in India comes from this very own Bombay-based factory. All right. So probably these are the important sites of manufacturing. And then maybe there is a belt in UP. Just a second. Yes, there is a belt in UP. Correct. Number four, there is a belt in UP. UP. There is a belt in UP where two plants, Daewoo of Korea, Daewoo of Korea, and Honda of Japan. The very famous Honda Civic City. So basically, Honda cars, Daewoo of Korea and Honda of Japan, they both have a manufacturing unit in UP. So more or less, this is the automobile scene with regard to India. Apart from that, you have in Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh, I have Nissan manufacturing unit. So Nissan Jeep, very famous. Nissan Jeeps are getting manufactured. So these are the important production units with respect to automobile sector. All right. All of this, how do you draw? You have to draw this in the help of a map. You use a map to depict this, then only it becomes nice. All right. So that is it with regard to automobile sector. That is it with regard to automobile sector. So in short, we have covered most of the uh, portions which is given in your industry chapter with respect to industries, What is left with industry? I mean, what is left with this particular chapter is uh, I have industrial uh, houses, and industrial complexes. I have industrial regionalization. I have regionalization of industries. I have MNCs and tourism. So not much. Let's quickly go through the next topic that we have for the day. That is about regionalization. This is a very important topic. Just follow me. Regionalization of industries. Regionalization of industries. This you must never write without a map. Regionalization of industries, you must always draw it or write. You have to write it with the help of a map. So let me quickly draw a map for you. So first of all, There are some major industrial regions, there are some minor industrial regions. Both are important. Both are important. First of all, let us talk about the major industrial regions. Major industrial regions. Right. Major industrial regions. One, you have to understand this is a the first point that you need to remember is RL Singh again comes here. RL Singh again comes here. RL Singh's methodology of regionalization is what we are learning. RL Singh's methodology of regionalization is what we are following today. And everybody, please follow me and please draw the map just like how I'm drawing. Okay, the map should be more or less, you should be comfortable in drawing a map. Mhm. Let's do this again. And do not have the habit of taking your hand, what do you say? Draw it in one single go only, then it will be, you will get a kind of a proportion. But I cannot do this here because I'm using a digital pen. I hope you understood what I am telling you. Fine. Now listen to this. Listen to this. The first major industrial region is Bombay, Pune, this region. The second thing is, Bombay, Pune region. The second thing is the Gujarat Ahmedabad region is another important belt, or you can call it as the Ahmedabad Vadodara belt. So that's the important belt here, Ahmedabad Vadodara belt. And then I have the Noida Gurgaon Delhi belt. Noida Gurgaon Delhi belt. Then I have the most important Chennai Bangalore belt. Hooghly region, Visakhapatnam Guntur, Guntur belt, and finally the Chota Nagpur region. Okay. Or less. Just a second. Just checking this. Okay, there is a small belt here also, very minor belt in respect of Kollam Trivandrum region. Some books say this as minor belt, but some books say this is a major belt. So yes, we will go with this way of organization. So first one is what? Number one, number two, first one is Gujarat Vadodara belt. And then I have the Bombay Pune belt. And then I have number three, Bangalore Chennai belt, Trivandrum Kollam, Chota Nagpur, Noida Delhi, Meerut Gurgaon belt, Hooghly region belt, or the Kolkata region belt, and finally your Visakhapatnam Guntur belt. All right. So these are the major belts of our country. Let us start with the Bombay Pune industrial region today, and with that we will complete it. We will wind up the class. We will wind up the class. Only one belt we will see today. Bombay Pune industrial belt. This belt has a colonial advantage. From British times, it has been present. And after the development of the Mumbai seaport and Jawaharlal Nehru Navasheva port, there has been huge development in this region. Historically, this region had the cotton advantage. It is always associated with cotton textile industry. Apart from this, we have the automobile sector, chemical, petrochemical industry, oil refining industry, pharmaceutical sector, leather goods, very, very important. Bombay and UP. Bombay and UP are very famous for their leather goods. Film industry, the entire Bollywood survives from Bombay. So film industry, these are the important industries. After Bombay, Pune is the most important or the most industrialized center of this particular region. There are also some problems with respect to this region. The first problem is uh, power disruptions, high cost of land, acquiring new land. You cannot acquire any more land in Bombay. It's completely exhausted. So high cost of land, high rent of commercial spaces, labor unrest, increasing environmental pollution. These are some of the problems pertaining to Bombay Pune region. All right, these are some of the problems pertaining to Bombay Pune region. We can quickly talk about Ahmedabad, that Gujarat belt also. Ahmedabad Vadodara belt. Take number two. Number two, Ahmedabad Vadodara industrial region. Because of the presence of petrochemicals, again, petrochemical industry, this one, pharmaceutical industry, port facilities, nuclear power station in Kakrapara nuclear power station, availability of cheap land, availability of good infrastructure, favorable governmental policies. There is availability of cheap labor. Because of all this region flourished industrially. And there is also a historical reason attached to it. That is Ahmedabad. Historically, it is associated with cotton textile production. Surat, again with textile. The people of these places are highly entrepreneurial. Gem industry, gem manufacturing, gem manufacturing units are also very famous here in Gujarat. We also have some of the heavy engineering industries in this region. And the problems pertaining to this region is scarcity of water and vagaries of climate. And very recently, communal tension is also cropping up in these regions. Communal tensions are also cropping up in these regions. Okay, with that, we will wind up the class for today. The rest of the regions we will continue in the next class tomorrow. That is okay. We will continue in the next class. That is tomorrow. Right. And a quick information. Let me give you a quick information before you leave. There is a heading here called as complexes, industrial complexes, not industrial complexes, industrial houses. There is a topic called as industrial houses. There is nothing much to deal with that because they are talking about the, the pride of Tatas, the pride of Birlas, the works done by Ambani's, Adani's, and so on. So that not much questions have been asked in that region. So that industrial houses, the very minor part that I will be giving you in the form of notes. Or just a glance கொடுத்தா மதி, nothing much has been asked from private industrial houses so far. All right. So that's one small information. Thank you so much. We will continue in the next class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.